This lesson, it's based on the Australian Signals Directorate, if I'm even saying that right. Essential 8. So what they did after doing hundreds and hundreds of threat hunting, instant response, and ethical hacking, these people are the best of the best, right? Every time they hold some kind of a competition of some countries defending, they always, go with number one. So they're really good. So what they did, they went on in 2017, they came up with this model known as Essential 8. And they said that if you are an organization that want to protect yourself, what are the core things, the 8 things that you can do to secure yourself? And they came up with these 8 things. And this video, it's going to be a quick video. I'm just going to go over this very quickly. And if you take some of my other classes, we dig deeper into these and kind of do some hands-on into this, so you can start kind of using them at work right now if you work in IT. So the first one, they said it was patch management. Like literally, patch your applications. There's another, patch your operating system. Let me be real with you. Often, the system that's not patched, the system that's not up to date, is the most important of them all. It's the most critical system on that environment. I'll give you a prime example. In hospitals, for example, whenever they develop a tool, they spend a lot of money on developing that tool. So let's say that they develop a tool on Windows 7, for example, right? They spend about $3 million developing this tool. That tool runs on top of Windows 7. Do you think in 5 years they're ready to migrate or ready to move on? Absolutely not. That tool will probably stay there for like 10 years or sometime more. And that tool is the most important of them all. And many times you don't just want to patch that tool or that system that has that tool, one, because you don't want to break anything, right? You don't really want to cause any problem. So therefore, most of the time, systems that are not patched are usually the most important systems on your environment. So patch your system is the number one and number 2 skills that's very critical. If you go in and you patch your system, meaning you keep your system up to date, that's really what patching means, meaning you update your system. If you go in and you do that, that's going to solve 90% of your problems, literally. If you could just if we in cybersecurity could just patch the systems, that would have solved 90% of our problems. But most of the time, we don't. That's why we have these issues. Right? Another thing that they have here, it's multi-factor authentication. I can't tell you how important this is. Multi-factor authentication is a must. Right? In the US, I think it was like 2021, 2022, the Biden administration signed an executive order that require all the government agencies to implement what we normally call the zero trust model, right? The zero trust architecture, zero trust model. And one of the primary things that they said that they need to do was multi-factor authentication, MFA. Multi-factor. What is multi-factor? Well, multi-factor is when we authenticate people based on what they know, what they have, and who they are, right? So we're going in and we're saying, hey, who are you? My name is, my username is this, my password is this. That's what you know. Then once you finish doing that, then we might say, look, we're going to send you a text message in your phone. And then once you receive that, go ahead and write that into this system. If they do that, they're authenticating you based on what you know. That's the username, that's the password. And then now based on what you have, the smartphone. The reason this is important is that if some attacker get their hands on your username and passwords, but they don't have your physical phone, So even if they know your username and password, they still can't get into the system because they don't have the phone. And that's the idea of multi-factor authentication. We're authenticating based on what you know, who you are, what you have, all kinds of stuff. It could also authenticate you based on where you are, right? Based on the location. There's a couple other things. We talk more about those in things like Security Plus. Another one that they identify is restrict administrative privileges. I can tell you how important this is. Often, when attackers are attacking your system, they also want to have access. Often, when the attackers are attacking your system, they want to become admin. They want to become administrator, literally. Because look, they cannot hack what they don't have access to. And many times, unless you're the administrator, you cannot install anything, right? You can't copy things, right? So they really want to become admin so that they can attack things. Therefore, if we go in and we restrict who is the administrator, right? Count them. Be like, okay, just these two people are the ones that's going to make changes to the environment, and then restrict their access, making sure that you have multi-factor authentication turned on for their account, literally. Because when the attackers are attacking you, they also want to become administrator so that they have more access, so that they can easily move around into your environment without any restrictions. Another one that's really interesting is application control. This one is interesting, right? Controlling the applications and how they get installed on your computer. There are a couple ways of doing this, right? First of all, we should not let anybody just install anything unless they're the administrator. They should not be able to install anything. Now, even those that are installing stuff, we need to control what they're installing. So application control, it's part of the whitelisting. Basically, we're going in and we're whitelisting the applications that we're allowing to be installed on the environment, and anything else and everything else gets blocked, right? Which is also known as a blacklisting, meaning we have a list of blocked software that we don't want on the environment. Or a whitelisting where we said, okay, these applications are allowed, anything else and everything else should be blocked. In fact, I recommend a whitelisting as a part of the application control. So in Windows comes with this tool. It's known as App Locker. Since I had it open here, I just wanted to show it to you. App Locker, this tool right here. I don't know if you can see it. App Locker is free, comes with your Windows. This thing is as easy as going in here, click on App Locker, go to Configure Rules, Rule Enforcement. And once you're here, go ahead and just turn these things on. You're doing a little bit more. You are enforcing. You got to make sure it says enforce rules so that this will be applied. So you go in and you're saying, hey, executables enforced, meaning you cannot just execute things. Installing things enforced, meaning you can just install stuff, like installing new applications. Another one, this one is interesting, scripts. Right? We're going in and we're saying, hey, we don't care if you're a macro, right? We don't care what kind of script it is. It could be a PowerShell script. It's not going to work here. Attackers, when they get into your environment, they want to run script, folks. Right? They want to go ahead and use PowerShell, use command prompt, be able to execute stuff and running scripts in the background. If you go ahead and just enforce this, that stuff is not going to work. And this is free and comes installed in your Windows. So just turn that on. But if you also have like a host-based Defender has a host-based application control now where you can whitelisting things and things along those lines. And that leads me to the next one. And this one is micro. I keep saying micro, but it's macros, right? Macros on your Microsoft Office product. If you run Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, you name it, macros are ways of giving your Microsoft Word and PowerPoint automation, basically superpower. You can script stuff and be able to automate certain tasks. Well, that's a problem, a big problem. Because guess what? The attackers can also script stuff. They can write a script that's going to go ahead and run in the background as soon as you double click on that Microsoft attachment, that Microsoft Word. You were thinking it's a Word document, but it's running some kind of a script in the background. So when you go in and you select that don't allow script to run, that's also one of those things that you're going to be fixing. Another one they have here is user application hardening, right? Hardening your application, it's by going in and deciding what is necessary, right? What are some of the ports that we need to open? What are some of the things that must be running on this system? And once you know what those are, shut down everything else you don't need. See, the problem we have specifically with the Windows computers, Microsoft opened too much. One of the attack that I showed you earlier, the WannaCry attack, used what we normally call SMB, the SMB protocol, SMB, which stands for a server message block. Server message block. This protocol, it's used to allow your computers to communicate with printers, right? To be able to talk to each other within a SAM network. Guess what? Version 1, it's very old of this protocol, this SMB protocol. But Microsoft always leaves this thing running for compatibility purposes. If you have an old printer, can be able to communicate with your machine. They don't want you to, be calling them, hey, Microsoft, this thing is not working. Well, they turn a lot of these things on by default. So your job as a cybersecurity professional is to go in and harden your system. Hardening your system is when you go in, you remove things you don't need. You look at the SMB version 1, you shut it down. You're like, hey, look, we don't need SMB 1. We don't need these other protocols. We don't need you to be talking to this. It sounds easy, but it's really hard to do. Last but not least is backups. All right, this is important, especially with the ransom. Right, if you remember in the early video, I was talking about ransomware, and I told you how it's a major issue. Guess what? One of the biggest fix we have against ransomware is backups. See, if somebody hold your computer hostage and is asking you to pay them some money, otherwise they're not going to give you access to your machine. But one of the things that you can tell them, hey, screw you, I am going to restore everything from the backups, right? But guess what? Companies don't have the latest backups. Companies don't keep their backups up to date. Therefore, when they get hit with a ransomware attack, they have no option other than paying the ransom. So these are the essential 8. Now, I had already kind of designed slides for this, right? But I'm not going to go over this because I just did, right? So there are some slides. I will be sharing these. I'll put these in the chat, not in the chat, but in the course. If you're watching this from the website, so that you can get a little bit more information on what's going on. But basically, I just wanted to summarize this and to tell you that, look, if you are working as a regular tech person at the company, these are the essential. Start doing these and you will win. Now, if you're coming into cybersecurity, focus on these first. Right? If you do these, you configure them the right way, you focus your security on these, you will solve majority of your company's problem.